With Post Pete, we don't glorify the life that was lived before. It's a part of your story. We
Right.
glorify the things that you're doing post incarceration, post tough times, whatever prison you have, and you've done amazing things. And that's why we want to share your story.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.
So, Will, I think we've wanted this guest on for over a year. Tell me, who do we got today?
And that is not an exaggeration. We have a great guest ahead of us. And it's been a year because you have an amazing, impactful story, right? Shaheed, you are a justice advocate, you are a scholar, you are a father, you are a faithful man, and you are now a world traveler. So I can't wait for you to share your story with all of our viewers. Welcome to Post Pete, man. Tell us your story, man. Where are you from, Shaheed?
I'm from Southeast San Diego. Hold on. First and foremost, I want to say, bruh, you just kind of man. I have never heard my name. You know what I mean?
I hope
Like,
that's a good thing. I
yeah,
hope
yeah,
it's a good
yeah, yeah.
thing.
No, for sure, for sure. It was a good thing. It shocked me, just hearing it in like that, like in that way. I hear it a lot, but like just put it in the just like the quote unquote titles that I've been able to acquire,
Yes, sir.
since post prison.
But you've done amazing things like that. We're not going to diminish that. There's a reason why you're here, right? And for
Most
those that
definitely.
don't know, with Post P, we don't glorify the life that was lived before. It's a part of your story. We
Right.
glorify the things that you're doing post incarceration, post tough times, whatever prison you have, and you've done amazing things. And that's why we want to share your story.
Most definitely. Well, most definitely. So, I'm from Southeast San Diego, specifically the Skyline O'Farrell area. Born and raised, man. Went to elementary school there in that area. Played Pop Warner in that area. Generational, like both of my grandparents, my great grandma and grandpa, rest in peace. But we still own that house right now
Wow.
in Goshelle, in the back of like in O'Farrell by MLK, in the back of Arterly, Amesbury. My great
That's
grandma
amazing.
still we still own the house. Like my great aunties and them live there now. And I also my nana also owned a house by Gary's on Lasan right there off of Gribble. So when I grew up like literally born and raised in Southeast Carolina area. Played football, went to O'Farrell, went to Morris, played football, played
It's
football my
all
whole
you know.
life. Yeah, that's all I
It's
know. You feel
all
me? Is
you know those streets, you know, like the back of your hand.
yeah, yep,
So for some people who don't know, that could be a good thing, a bad thing. It could be both, a good and bad thing.
yep,
So what
yep.
has it been for you?
The most it was crazy you asked that question, right? Because I literally this earlier was asking myself this question because I came from an expungement with a brother named Desmond. He's from his name is Lil Hall. He from Lincoln, other side of town. I went to his expungement today, right? We would have never ever have back in the days. It was like it was we couldn't be in the same area.
On
So
site.
on site. So today
On site.
I supported his expungement, right? And I was the only outside of my other community members at Pillars. I was the only male figure there, right? And the first thing he said to me was, "Bro, my homies ain't even here. Like, like not in a million years where I would have ever thought you would be here." And I spoke, like the judge asked who wanted to speak. I was like the first one to let me speak, like, and I was able to highlight where I come from. I was able to highlight the work that I do, and the the work that I'm supposed to do. It's 100%. Literally, ask myself. how I say, like, I said, damn, like, it's no benefit to the life, right? Like there's no benefit to coming up in the streets and having to do certain things, like, prove yourself, and you end up in prison, like, you don't, it's no benefit, it's no material benefit to it.
Right.
Literally, you go to jail and you realize, wow,
Death or
I've been
jail.
duped.
Death
You
or
be like,
jail.
I've
Guaranteed.
been duped. So you like, like, what was the benefit of all that, right? You realize that, right? And because I literally asked myself this question, I said, damn, will the benefit for me, if from at this moment, was I was able to survive it, and now I'm able to, like, be really, really effective in my community to the youth and the people in my community because of my previous, God works in mysterious ways. God could
Yes.
turn, the things you've done bad into good now. Just, that's how God works. So now I could see, like, it was a I was just talking about this. It was a OG when I was in prison. He was a like an OG, like, he's a Rastafarian, and he said, when I was in High Desert, he said, your purpose is in your crucible. I'm like, what does that mean? My purpose is in my crucible. Like, I was like, bro, break that down for me, and he said, send me down on everything. He had his Bible, his long dreads, right? He's the most, those people in prison be like the people that people stay away from be the most wise people in prison. The people that people be like, oh, that guy is weird, or that guy, those be the most, like, wise guys in
Gravitate
prison.
towards them.
Yeah, you
Learn
gravitate
something from
towards,
them.
you learn something from.
Yeah.
So he said, your purpose is in your crucible. I'm like, and then I'm like, what does that mean, bro? I don't know what that means. That's over my head. He like, wherever your most struggle has come from, that's where your purpose is. Like, what you've been struggling with, like, and I'm like, and I had to sit on that for like a while to make it. Now to know what he meant now, I'm like, wow, because everything I went through coming up in Southeast San Diego at that point in time, San Diego was different when we was coming up at that time. Like, to be able to have, like, made it through now, and to be able to have, like, to make the choices that I've made to change and evolve through prison, and to be home now, to be in the
Yeah.
community, and to be have traveled to Africa, to be able to, like, mentor the most, what is it, the most at-risk youth, like,
Hmm.
literally on the ground.
Yeah.
I only could have went through what I went through to be
Right.
able to do and be so effective in what I'm doing now, not only in the community, but just, just in my life.
So let's get into what did you go through growing up? What are those things that you've been through that now you're able to go back and get through? How was it Skyline growing up back in the day in
So,
your age?
ooh, growing up back in Skyline in our days, it was beautiful. I'm gonna say this. It was community. I'm gonna say that first and foremost. Cause I know, being older now, I know what was actually, like, what was going on. So, like, it's like, it was community. It was, as a kid, it was, it was fun. It was fun. I was, let me say this. I grew up with a mom and dad. I grew up in the household my whole life. Parents married. Mom and dad. So I always tell people this. People think my dad is like day one San Diego Southeast Skyline, but no, my dad is like from LA. My mom is like the root of, like, like,
San
of San
Diego.
Diego. Yeah, my
Right.
dad's from LA. He's from off somewhere. Came. My mom family. So I do gotta highlight that. My mom is where the, like, the what's the word I'm looking for? My mom is,
She's the cornerstone
yeah,
of
she's
the
the
Price
cornerstone
family.
of the Price family. But it's my
Yeah,
dad's last
which is
name. But
it's
my
the
mom's
dad's
is the
last name, but
cornerstone.
your mom's the cornerstone because the Price is a big family, right? It's a big family, and I
So
don't know if we are doing a justice of what you really experienced because your brother was on the show. Your brother, we
yeah,
we were able to interview your brother on Post P, and now we have you. So we have maybe a little bit of understanding. I have more of
Yeah.
an understanding, but the post P family has a little bit of understanding what the prices went through. But from your perspective, good, bad, and different, how tough was it? Because you did say you ended up in prison. And so it couldn't have just been, leave it to Beaver,
Right, right, right,
mom,
right.
dad, dog that sent you to prison.
So, so growing up in my family, like, so we weren't really a big family, right? Like, okay, I had in our household I grew up, it was six of us, and I had like step brothers, like four of them, right? I'm gonna say that. But what it was our family was so like the prices was so like we were so much as a unit. Our friends and our cousins and other community, like you know what I mean, other like friends we grew up, we used to be over at our house a lot, and we used to all hang out a lot. So it used to think that people used to think the prices was like this big old family. No, it was only like max nine of us, like 10 of, no, okay, that's a lie. Like nine or 10 of us. But we had a lot of like people, friends and stuff like that.
That's
So
a
like,
lot, though.
well, like 9 or 10, it was,
9 and 10 brothers and sisters is a lot. I grew up
yeah,
with three
yeah.
sisters,
So
and
it,
I
let me
thought
see,
that was a
yeah.
lot.
So like, so just growing up, my mom did all she can. My parents did. My mom did all she can to try to keep us in school, in sports. Like I always tell people all the time, like I did not start like I was a little bad growing up, but like once growing up in the community, like, most of our friends, most of our families, most of everybody was, it was just regular. What we was doing, fighting, be, being mischievous, doing little stuff in the park. That stuff was like just regular to me growing up. So like I didn't really start like being like a hard notch kid to like a like ninth like let me okay kind of being
Everything changed for
mischievous.
you around ninth or 10th grade.
Yeah. So like I was still like all the way up until growing up, like, I was real bad. We was fighting and stuff, but like once I got to like high school, I got
It got
suspended in middle
serious.
school. Once I got to high school and the time came between that they told me that I could no longer play high school football. High school football was keeping me like most of my friends was still like I was hanging around was kind of like in the streets, but I was kind of like still playing high school football. Like I was ninth grade, I was freshman MVP, 10th grade. I was JV, played JV and varsity, MVP of JV team. So I was still kind of like straddling that line of I started like robbing houses like ninth grade. I started like the end of ninth grade. I started to like really like get into like crime. Right, I
Flocking.
started to like
Yeah.
flocking. Right, we started hitting house. I started hitting house licks, and like I started to find myself like, I was known in the community as like Wooty Whoop's son and Wooty Whoop's brother. You know, um, that's Lil B-Lo. Like, everybody was like, oh, that's Lil B-Lo and stuff like that. Like, it's like my dad. Like, you just call all my brothers under my dad. So, like, once I got to ninth grade, I kind of started to, like, do a little, hit house licks. 10th grade, I started to, like, yeah, it was my 10th grade year. I started to, like, do that more often. I started slacking in school. They told me my going into my 11th grade year. No. I went to juvenile hall. I hit a house lick. I went to juvenile hall. They let me out. I was supposed to play football. They told me like you can't play for half the season. That was all. That was like the worst
All
thing.
she
Like
wrote.
my yeah. That was like all she
You
wrote
say
for
that was
me.
like the tipping point for you.
Yeah, other things happened. Like I lost like someone that was like an uncle to me when I was young. Like the critic. This is around the same my ninth grade year. I lost someone that was like an uncle to me named Greg, a GFO, and like he was like a very. I tell people all the time the way that I am now, in like to like my youth in the community is the way GFO was to us growing up. Like he was a very like positive figure in the sense of like he always made sure we was in school, gave us money when we scored touchdowns, always checked on our grades, always was like, hey, after college, like, hey, after you go to high school, go to college, I want tickets. Like he was just a positive, whatever he was to other people, what he was to us in the community, like to like my age group, he was like a positive figure. He passed away. He got murdered, and that was like the most like shocking to me. Like it was like before he was like that, like kind of like that security guard where like every time he'll see us, he was like, you should like get out of here. He kind of like kick us out the set. He'll kind of like he'll support us at our game. So it was kind of like once he
He kept you
died,
on the right path.
yeah, he kept us on. Once he passed, then like that's when I really started to experience like a like a
There was
like
nobody kicking you out the park anymore. There
yeah,
was
there
nobody
was
telling
like
you to stay in school. There was nobody telling you, hey, when you finish college, when you finish high school, go to college and give me tickets, right? There was
yep.
no positive
Will
influence in
Will
your life at the time.
my
Or your
mom and
mom,
yeah, but like someone that
right?
like we looked up to, like someone was like,
Yeah.
oh, he's a cool guy, was
You
him.
wanted
It
to
was
be
like,
like him,
yep,
but he's like,
100%.
don't be like me.
Yep, 100%. So like he passed away in my ninth grade year, and that was like that I could remember was like my first like internalized harm that I took. Like, oh, I'm about to like go hard, and I'm about to like, like okay, I'm about to really start picking this up. Going into my
Yeah.
10th grade year, I'm still. You remember like when I'm not at school, I'm at home. We running around at the park. I'm running around with my friends and the homies. Still, but
Right.
football what kind of was kept me was able to like I was able to play like I was able to be Two Face. I
Right.
was able to be this, but I was like really really good in football. So that kept me like that was like my like I was checked out of school already. I didn't care about school. School to me was like I checked out of school like seventh grade. I was
So 10th
already
grade, you jumped off the porch.
10th grade.
10th grade, done with football. It
Oh no
sounds
no.
like in 10th
So
grade,
10th grade, I was going to my 11th grade year. I got locked up before like summer or something like that, and then they let me out. I went to summer school and I was supposed to get a 2.0. I was supposed to get, and I remember my teacher told me to go talk to the principal. His name was Mr. Irvin, and he said, I remember going to him and said, Mr. Irvin, can you please change, like, can you please give me a waiver so I can play football? And he told me no. He's he was it was a black man, a brother. He said he was like, nope, you like I'm not signing it. And I remember how I felt internally when he told me that basically I'm gonna have to sit out the whole season, half the season. And I said, "Oh, my football career is over with. School's over with. Like, like I'm done. Like, it's over with for me. Like, I'm not f school. I'm. I like felt hatred. You know what I mean? I said, okay, fuck it.
right.
Then fuck it. Okay, fuck it. So then that was when. After that, I ended up going to juvenile hall. I got locked up with one of my bros. I went to juvenile hall for the first time, and in 2008, I was 17, fresh 17. I went to juvenile hall, and that was what like before I was still kind of, you know what I mean. I was still, other people was kind of a little bit more advanced than me. I was like still, but once I went to juvenile hall and came home, from
It was a wrap.
17, that was what was like. It was already there, but like once football was over and I went to juvenile hall, it was over.
So tell us about that. Tell us about that. Tell us what led you to that incarceration, because it sounds like I know a little bit about, you know, who Keyshawn Price was before he became Shaheed,
Yeah,
right? And Keyshawn Price, I heard a lot about you. I was incarcerated at the time,
right.
but I did hear a lot about you. I'm not glorifying the lifestyle, but I'm just speaking to our viewers to say that if I'm hearing about you inside those walls, then yeah,
You know,
you were
like
trouble. You know,
you you know like
you were doing something.
coming up in Southeast when we came up, it's crazy, right? Being the age I'm older, being able to work with youth that was my age at the pivotal like 17, 16, 17.
Hmm.
Like I worked from like with like young homies from the ages 13 to 22, literally. And I remember at that age. Wait, can you ask that question again? I did a question
So
because I.
no, no, it's good. So I was saying, what ended up leading you to prison? Because I was incarcerated
Okay,
when
yeah.
you became who you became, and
Right,
although we're
okay.
not glorifying that
Okay,
lifestyle, you said that at the beginning, you were a problem in the southeast streets,
right,
right?
okay,
And
right.
so I want you to describe very shortly what that problem was and how that problem it landed you with a 10-year sentence.
So, so I went to prison twice. So that was in 2000 and like I went to juvenile hall. I did Canberra time, got out, went back to juvenile hall, and at 19 years old is when I caught my first prison sentence. I caught my first prison sentence. I was 19 years old, and
How much time did you get?
they gave me 5 years, 8 months. I got 5 years,
5 years.
8 months. Yeah, for my first prison term, I got five
How
years,
much
eight
did you do
months.
off of that?
I did 2.5.
Two
That
and a
was
half.
yep my first time. They gave me halftime, and to answer your question, I want to say like coming up like coming up specifically in the gang culture, coming up in the streets, you mimic people that came before you. You feel me? So when
Hmm.
we came up, it was like, especially if you came up in the streets, it was and people didn't have to say that. It was certain conduct you knew you followed if you wanted to
Hmm.
live up to a certain status or be a certain
Hmm.
way. So when I came up in the streets and seeing, seeing those that came before me, it was like, oh, we want to be like those homies right there. We want to be like we want to be like the heavy hitters. We want to be like these specific people, the super G homies that came before us. Is so. It was like falling into what led to me like going to prison was like coming up like it's crazy because how like coming up our first goal before like our first coming from the streets, your first goal is not to own a house or to rent or to have a car. Like your first goal is to have a gun and shoot somebody or you know what I mean, or like your first goal coming up is like I want to be like my goal coming up before I was ever in trouble was I want to be on GSU. Where did I get that from? Why do I want like my goal coming up was like after football when that was gone and like I deaded that it was like oh I want to be like bro and them who look cool when the GSU come pick them up because everybody talks about him or when they come back they have this like certain persona. They go and come back and now he was 95 pounds, now he 120 pounds. It was like, it was our
Yeah,
wake up coming up is kind of like is pretty
it's pretty messed up. It's
man,
pretty.
it's like
It's pretty messed up to say the
so
least.
that's me answering your question was like that's what I was like, okay, who do you want to be? I don't want to be Keyshawn. That's not working. Like not that that's not working. That ain't fitting into this this the certain identity that I identify with coming up in
Right.
Southeast. There's a lot of
Right.
identities you could identify with coming up in San Diego. You know what I mean? And coming up in inner cities, it's a lot of identities you could identify as. So me
Keyshawn
specific.
wasn't. Yeah.
Keyshawn wasn't identity I wanted. I'm like when we were coming up, it was I realized coming up, I was always until now. Now, well, in prison, I realized I was very like intelligent. Coming up, I was always, in school they tell you you got an IEP since you start grade school, you got an IEP. He's behind on, comprehension. All throughout school is always telling you school is trying to reinforce how dumb you are. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And outside of school, mom got to work, that, community, you doing what you running around. You're not at home reading or trying to better your comprehension or whatever the school is talking about. So just being able to like, now being older, I realize I'm able to like see things and like like analyze things. When I was younger, I was great at that gift too because I realized, okay, football's over. Let me see who I don't want to be like. You know what I mean? Who's a shark? Who's a guppy? Who's a goldfish? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Who do you got to be like to?
Top of the food chain.
You feel me? So this is what I realized,
Yeah.
and I realized all this in prison. In prison
Yeah.
journals. But like, young, you just like, okay, oh, I like that person because he get beat up. Can't be like that. Can't be like him. You start to
Right.
you don't know you're doing it, but your mind is starting to identify who you want to be, how you want to be, who you want to be around, and things like that. So like, all this is kind of like, and
It
then
just
with how
happened
you were
naturally.
raised, yeah, and then
Right.
you're raised up in a certain environment, and
22
that,
brothers and sisters,
yeah,
you
and
know.
I don't blame. To be honest with you, I do not blame my parents. I do not blame my grandparents. I do not blame. I They probably get a little piece of the blame, but it's a lot in society that brought upon why we have a repetitive youth growing up without education in prison, killing each other. Like it's a whole system that causes that. You know what I mean? So like I do not like you said beginning, like we don't glorify the streets and the killing and all that. We don't. It's nothing to glorify, but we do like, is we do we learned a lot from it, like it's you could catch us in our mode and you'd be like, are these dudes highlighting the streets? You'd be like, nah, I'm not highlighting it. It's just it's certain moments in that we were, in that experience that it's like,
Yeah.
you can just like when we both seen the thing. You seen it about somebody talk about the East Wing. When I seen that, I'm like, oh, I remember the East Wing, brother. Like
Yeah.
you have to go there to be there. Like not too many people know about it. Like you feel me? I had a
Man,
comment in there
for
too. Like hold on, I
for
got to comment on
Steven
this.
who's looking at us like we crazy, the East Wing is a dance, is a skyline specific dance, and one of our mutual friends, he did a podcast and he interviewed some of the people who started the dance, and so just watching it, it brought me back to those parties, right? And I commented, and everybody was doing the East Swing, and it just brought me
Yeah,
back to that moment, like not glorifying the life around it, but again, like you said, it wasn't just all terrible. There was some community, and just dancing at the Boys and Girls Club functions.
it was
That
nostalgic
was
watching
fun
that.
doing the
And on
East
everything,
Swing,
I gotta comment
man.
in this. But so yeah, so just to like to kind of answer your question, I answer your question just like, it's like that's what kind of mimicking and seeing how you want to be like and who you want to be like, and football was over for me. Like that's what makes me so effective now is most kids are growing up just like us, just like just like literally growing up in. You wouldn't people wouldn't expect this, but you got youth growing up literally like how we grew up in the '90s. Ain't never left this specific side of town. Parent, mom, grandma live here, live in the brook. Mom never left. They never went past VP Elementary. And to this day, you be like,
Let me ask you something. So I'm a fast forward it, but we hit so many times on you as
yeah,
a community member, on the change that you are affecting the community, right? And the empathy that we have for the young people that are coming through this. What responsibility does the older generation that still glorify this life, what responsibility do they have? Because they know better now, right? You said that there's a system put in place that keeps us in this situation, right? And I'll give that to the youth, right? But I can't make that same excuse, me
Right.
myself. I can't make that same excuse for people who have gone through the system, who know better, and choose to continue to perpetuate the same negative stereotypes for little 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old boys and sending them off to the cemetery or off to the penitentiary. So what responsibility do you think they have?
The biggest responsibility we could think of. They
Yeah.
souls is on the line. It's they souls on the line. It's interesting, right? Because the res- I I realized, you know that saying like everybody's not chosen. You people use that loosely, but you like everybody's not chosen, and in the sense of like, I realized how much certain older homies had on us, right? The influence that they had on us, and to to go for me to go through the same experiences they went through, and to get out of prison, come back out of prison, and perpetuate the same thing. You know, like I said, I went to prison. I realized like, man, I got a lot of friends. You know, go to prison, you realize they're gonna be your best friends and y'all really alike. I got out of prison, and it was like prison never happened to me. You feel me? I got out of prison and got back out. Well, didn't last that long. Did not last long. Lasted about a few months. Went right back to prison, and I started to realize. I said, "Wow, like we that responsibility for me." I was so okay. I felt sick to my stomach when I realized we was lied to, right? Like, like when I actually came to that conclusion, even though I was young in 19, 20, going to the county jail, in prison, my mind was not nowhere like, I wasn't thinking about, the science to tell you a youth mind don't develop till he's 20,
Right.
25 years old. So at 19, 20, when I was went to prison, came back, though my experiences like was telling me, oh, these is my brothers. These is we are similar. This is not my enemy. You know what I mean. When it comes down to it, we only destroying each other. Even though like at that time I was experiencing that, it was. So when I went back to prison, I started to realize like, wow, I got. I started to feel very upset at certain individuals I grew up with. That I'm like, if you knew this, why didn't y'all say this? Why didn't y'all tell us about? When I first went to prison, I went from a level 3 to a level 2. Now, you feel me? I went from a level, this was 2011, 13. This was before they implemented 50 yards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was just active yards. Everybody
Yeah,
fighting, everybody turned up,
yeah.
everybody smoking weed.
So
It's almost like you in on the street. Essentially, all young dudes and everybody turned up and gangbanging.
everybody turned up gaming. So when I come back home,
You
I go
worse.
crazy. Yeah, I worse. But when I get back into prison, I go back to prison and I actually sitting back thinking, I'm like, I start to have introspection. Like, in prison, you sit.
You
Wait,
ain't
hold on.
got nothing but time on your
I know
hands.
Will been in prison. Steven, you been in prison?
Nope.
Okay, okay,
In a way, Stephen has done a lot of prison ministry since,
okay.
I mean, from a young age, talking to
I've been
Joel
in
Hall.
many prisons and prisons all over the world, but I myself have not served time in prison.
Okay. Ooh, God is good. That's a
Ain't
great thing. Yeah, that's a great
Amen.
thing. As well, like you sit in that cell and you think about your whole life. You got nothing but time and seconds to think about every decision damn near you ever made in your life, that you could think of and dissect it over and over. You think about your childhood. You think about like stuff you could have done better. So I started to realize like the responsibility that's on someone like myself in prison, especially when I started to like evolve. You know, it took me time. Once I started to like got into my faith and I started to get educated, I started to educate myself. I started to learn about the systematic the the systematic racism in the system, like mass incarceration. When I started to learn about civil rights, literally, I'm like, I knew what civil rights was, but I didn't know. When I started to learn about the Black Power movement, when I started to learn about African history, when I started to learn about these certain things, I started to be like, hold on, we just wasn't like gangbangers. All I thought my whole life was just, I thought literally from slavery, you know, you learn a little bit about Malcolm, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, you know, basic public schools in Southeast San Diego.
Right.
So you really don't know nothing but how to count. And so when I got to prison, I started to learn these type of things. I started to realize like when I said earlier, like a few minutes ago about like being chosen, you know, like when you like it's like when you wake up to faith, you know what I mean? You like, wow, like, you know, I feel like everybody got to feel like they're chosen. They're chosen to something. So I started to realize like the generation that came, do you know you're only second generation of Southeast? Like like gang banging started in Southeast in the 80s. That's our parents. In the 90s, they were what, 20 years old? Our parents? From 65 is our G is homies. 70, 65? 70, 65 to 50. That's my parents' generation. They're 50. They're old. They're 55, 56. That's that first generation. That's that like, and then you have like the 40. How old are you?
I'm 38
38. I'm
in a couple
34.
weeks.
Yeah, I'm
Not yet.
34.
Couple days.
I'm 34, about to be 35. We're only like second and a half generation out of our parents was, I don't know, but I'm talking about was crack. My parents was like grew up in crack era in Southeast San Diego. The epidemic of crack, the crack era, the epidemic of gang banging in the 80s and 90s. 2000s, we came along in 2000s. Our G homies, that first generation of G that got taken away, that did their the 90s, the 80s, they was youth. 90s, they got taken away. Early 2000s, they was away. When I started to actually like realize these things, I started to realize like they came home and you know, they was 30, you know, the homies that got home came home that was at 20, 30s and perpetuated that
Negative
the
stereotypes.
whatever the code is, the
Right.
gang banging code, whatever that gang banging code is. And when I started to realize, when I started to realize, like, you know, I actually wanted to be, like, I told myself, like, I want to go back to the community. You know, I read the Bible, I read the Quran, you know, the prophets, you know, I look up to these people. I look up to the prophets, peace be upon them, who went to their people. They didn't go nowhere. They didn't get enlightened and get the message and leave. They didn't go off and you know and live a life. They went back amongst the people. You know, they went back amongst the people and back amongst to that's how I started to look at my life. You know what I mean? And that's why I started to realize like
You're
those
chosen.
those yeah, those that I chose to led wrong, because you know I led a whole generation. I led a generation that came after me that's all in prison. They all in prison and never coming home. And I started to realize like, okay, I could be, because remember, and then I said, hold on, why do I said, you know, and this is the the traditional
Right.
way you're supposed to look at it, but I believe it's gonna change. I said, why? When I came home, I said, why do you why do the why do the negative homies, come on, bro, like the negative people get to be the loudest as far as
Yes.
like get to have the impact on the youth. But if
Ding,
you
ding,
are
ding.
a good homie, which you went through the ringer, you solid, but you're a square, right? Like I said, when Muslim in prison, I chose to say, I'm not with that goofy stuff no more. That's out. I'm not like literally. I thought through this. My heart's not in crashing out for this no more. I'm not. I'm not for this for my for what I believed in. You know, the homies, the set. Like,
That's not an easy decision to make.
nah, no, it's
That is
not.
not an easy decision to make. And I know that you took some flack behind that.
So this is gonna be crazy. So I was in high desert, level 4, 180 when I got introduced to Islam. On the lower levels, it took me 2 to 3 years to finally like say,
Separate
okay, it's
yourself.
that time. Now God just said, it's that time. It's that time
Yeah.
to make that hijrah. You know, it's that soul. Now in high desert, now remember, Will, had I had regular fights in prison. I've never got caught with a knife. I never was a part of no DPs, no 2-on-1s. I never got part of no stabbing. I never had no drugs or nothing. I had a regular fight and got caught with a phone. I was supposed to go. I had like, you remember the point system changed from like I forgot the point system changed,
Level
and
3 points went up, so you was
yes,
able to go
something made
to
me a
level three
level
sooner.
4, right? No, but something made me go to. Now I'm talking about what made me kind of like, what made me.
Go up in level.
Yeah, I'm gonna speed up like kind of like my transition on like what kind
Yeah.
of like happened, but what before I went to high desert, I was on a yard in level 3 Wasco, tripping. I was, level 3 politicking. you
I
know,
do not like level 3 politicking, y'all. It is terrible. I was in Pelican Bay. I mean, I was in Pelican Bay and I was in High Desert 180, and going from those 180s to a level 3, man, I wanted to slap everybody. I'm like, bruh, just
so
disrespectful. It was terrible. Yeah, I already know.
so I
I already
never
know.
like so I remember people used to talk about like people used to say, youngsters need to go to level 4 180s. I never been to 180 at the time. I used to be like, oh man, OG, nobody care about that. I done got over a fight because the OG told me I needed to go to 180. And I'm like, what? I ain't, I've never gotten no trouble like super, super. I'm supposed to go to a 270. They endorsed me to high desert 180, Will. I've,
Hey, wake your game up.
so
Hey, to wake your game up.
you already know it. And people over exaggerate, so I'm thinking it's about to be crazy. I'm like, it's about to go up. It's when I get up there, they already on lockdown because of a stabbing. They is went up. I'm on C status when I go up there because I already got in trouble for some like phone fights and stuff. I'm on C status, and I started to like. I tell people all the time, like when I got up there, even the drive up there was humbling. It was so long. You go out of California into Reno and back in California, and then
Man, good times. Bad stuff.
what? Look,
Man,
y'all both familiar with the Old Testament 40 years in the wilderness, children of Israel?
Steven is definitely familiar.
That is what I call high. I was in high desert for 2 years. I call my high desert experience my 40 years in the wilderness. That's what my symbolic of how life changing that experience was for me. I'm getting the chills when I talk about it. I damn near be wanting to cry about that because that was a time of like you had to like woo, bro. That was a Will knows, woo,
Yeah. Oh, I know.
bruh,
I know. Yeah.
woo. And I just remember the feeling of like going up there and they was on lockdown. I went first time in prison, level 3 Donovan reception to level 2 to out of prison. I go back to prison. I go from level 3 to a level 180, right? And we pull up, and I'm thinking, it's. I said, am I in another planet? I'm so mind blown. They put us in a cell. I'm so blind. I want to cry. I'm like, and we in shackles because we're on lockdown. This is like, so I'm like, what's going on here? What's going on? They put us in a cell, and it was a dude. And you know how when you in like, you from a certain, you from the streets, and you go to certain places. If you is word travels, so like more than likely somebody probably been with somebody
Right.
So I ended up being with somebody that was with D Moss and Norris and everybody in like New Delano. So it was a dude named, I think his name was Strap. He was burnt out though, right? Really burnt out, but he knew I was like, he knew I've never been like, this was like kind of like, he knew I was kind of like
You knew you was
timid.
new to it.
Yeah, he knew I was new, and I'm like, and he like, bro, where you from? I'm from, Skyline. I'm from a First Skyline area. Like, oh, I was with, start naming names. And I'm like, start naming.
Like perfect. Them the big bros.
I said, Norris, D-Moss. I'm like, Rico. I'm like, I'm like, bruh, on every, those my big bros. I'm like, on everything, bro. Like, those, I'm,
I'm good. Right.
like, on everything, those my guys.
Let me kick my feet up and get comfortable now.
You feel me? And I remember him telling me, he said, hey, bro, and this was my foundation. He said, bro, run your program. Don't let nobody. And I realized coming up, we'll go back to my experience. Coming up in Southeast San Diego, the way I grew up prepared me for everything I went through in life. Because in prison, it's only your own, it's you. It's only your name and your honor. You feel me? No, it's about like, and I'm going to, and maybe we could like unpack this a little later, but like, you got to stand on your gangster. And I can say like, you know, you got to stand on your gangster. You got to stand on your manhood. You got to stand on your manhood. Growing up in Southeast San Diego, and from who my parents was, from all my experiences, the people I looked up to, the people I came up under, having to fight all the time and prove yourself, prepared me for prison and to carry myself a certain way to be able to lead to me becoming Shaheed. Because you just can't, you just can't. You know how prison goes. So I just remember him telling me like, bro, run your program and don't let nobody dictate don't let nobody dictate your program. Don't let nobody dictate who you're gonna become and what you're gonna do. You feel me? Because you got a lot of dudes, prison politics, prison
Right.
games. So I'm like, all right, bro, for sure. I'm like, all right. We separated instantly. After a week, I go off to see status on the lower yard. Man, after I experienced the violence that first week, like going to yard, the violence I started to experience there was that Freddy versus Jason type of violence that like, up close. I'm like, I'm like,
Total like people are so desensitified. Is my thinking the word?
yeah,
Desensitized.
Desensitized.
yeah, desensitized.
Desensitized to the violence. People just getting stabbed and you chilling on the yard and you just watching it.
Bro.
And just watching people getting butchered.
I'm like, so,
and you just
for
chilling.
For me, my experience was like, I was already on a level of like, I was already questioning things. Oh, hold on, let me first pause. Before I went to High Desert, one of my little bros got murdered, right? Got killed, right? And Lil Aaron, rest in peace, got killed. And he was so close to me, like it was so close that it made me start questioning, is this life really worth it? Before I went to High Desert, you feel me? Like I started to, certain things was going on. And I started to question him. Like, I was like that was very very close to me, like
Right.
like it was very close, and it made me start questioning, like like
Is it worth it?
yeah, is it
What
worth
am I
it?
doing? Who am
Is it
I?
worth it, and what am I doing, and like and that was just that, and then I kind of phased out, and then I read a book called The Willie Lynch Letter before I went to High Desert. This is
Mm.
so that happens. I get it, kind of some little whatever, what's going on, whatever, and then I read this book called Willie Lynch Letter, and it like woke me up, and like I'm like, that's the first time I ever learned the other side about slavery, right? Which
Hmm.
people say the Willie Lynch letter was a fake letter. I don't know. You gotta look into that. They say that it was a letter made by some professor at college to do a test. You gotta look into that because people be talking about that like that's like a real letter, but
I would say even if it is fake,
it's too that is
what it
too.
what it does to today, like colorism, what we do to ourselves, right? Pitting us against each other, what we do, it's still true, right? Whether
one hundred
whether
percent.
it's the story is true or not, the reality of the story is true, right? So I
one hundred
think
percent.
we can settle on that one for sure, and
one Hundred
let everybody
percent.
else dissect
Yeah, 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 yeah. Right, right.
the truth of the
So,
letter.
being able to experience, so I said that to say now with the high desert, started to see the violence, right? I started to see it was so it was a brother named Weasel. He was from up north. He was a North Day, right? And he gave me this Boosie CD called forgot like Life After Death Row. Life After Death Row. Oh, that album got me through some hard times in prison. And I remember I gave him he came to get his CD that morning from me. Hey bro, let me come get your CD. Let me come get the CD. You had it for like 2 weeks. I'll give it to him. So we end up going to yard, right? And we go out the yard, but I'm on C status, so only C status was coming out the yard. This one I knew. I went back to the cell and I wrote this in my journal. We go out the yard. They wasn't like the people that wasn't on C status wasn't supposed to come to yard. It was just C status yard and the other buildings, the lower tier. So we all at yard. I hear them call the dude Weasel on the tier for a haircut. Like they called him out of High Desert to the yard for a haircut.
That
We're
ain't supposed to
like,
go down.
right? So I'm not really paying attention, right? So we sitting there and like probably like we at the black tables, is the table. So I'm looking across and they cutting their hair, his hair. They start stabbing him, right? Like in the neck, just like. And I'm like not even 20 yards away. I'm sitting and the police is walking. You know how it's ruthless.
Oh, they're
The
gonna take their
police is
time.
they're
They gonna take their time.
walking. They it's two of them. They're just and like they're just like, and he's stabbing back. They're just and I'm sitting there like I'm in shock. I'm in like the gruesomeness. This is movie stuff, bro. I'm like, I'm in full shock. Well, I'm in shock, bro, watching this. It's I'm watching it. I'll go back to the cell. It was so traumatizing. I started journaling. This gave me on my journal, my 4 year. I'll show you. I seen a video. I got 10 journals of my years in High Desert. And from my last like 5 years, I've journaled all of it. All of my experiences and my growth from like who I thought I was to who I am, right? And I remember going in the cell and writing about that experience. And I remember looking in the mirror. Other things didn't happen. Other things happened after that. And I'm like, this ain't it. You know what I mean? I'm like, this ain't it. And I remember looking in the mirror and saying, who am I? I said, I'm like, I literally was like, and I always tell people before anybody else questioned me and was like questioned my gangster, I questioned myself, like especially in those settings, And when I say that, you know what I mean when people
Oh, for sure.
start trying to like. So I was looking in the mirror and early, I'm like, hold on, bro, I'm not whoopty whoop and whoopty whoop. I'm Keyshawn Price. I haven't called myself by my real name in.
Years.
I can remember my mom. Only my mom and my family called me that. I haven't called my. Was in the mirror in the high desert, and I'm like, I'm not. I'm. I need to get to Keyshawn again. I need to be Keyshawn again. This is in high desert, and this is all in my head. This is all. And I just remember. I remember being on the yard, and it was this older dude name. The dude name was, I forgot his name. We called him Demon. Right, his name was Demon from like San Bernardino. Got life. He had like 19 years. He got life in prison. Whatever, right? Cool. One of the smartest dudes I've ever met in my life. But the most craziest, right? Like, and I remember we on the yard, and this was like my first like test, and you know, they was actually trying to give us some knives, like they was like asking us like, hey, y'all want some knives or like, and I'm like, I'm hearing them, but I'm ignoring them. I'm talking to one of the homies, and I'm like, I'm ignoring them. I'm like, bro, I'm not listening. We talking, but he's behind us. I'm like, we not listening, and he like, hey, y'all wanna like. And I'm like, hey, bro, I like turn around and I'm like joking because I'm like a funny guy. So I'm like, hey, bro, we hear you, but we just ignore you. He like, he like, he like, what you mean? I'm like, he like, y'all got life? I'm like, nah, nigga. I'm like, I'm trying to go home. I said, bro, I'm not, I literally was just being myself. Normally at that time, they didn't do nothing but laugh, right? He laughed. Me and him ended up becoming cellies like a few weeks later. Man. And he ended up telling me, he said, bro, because you make, because I was so genuine, he said, usually, he said, usually those are consequences, but he said, bro, you were so genuine in, you know what I mean? And you a funny dude that, they was like they accepted it. But I was just being myself. Like, bro, I'm trying to go home.
You
I'm
got
like,
back to Keyshawn Price.
yep. I said, hey,
You
I want to go
found him.
home, bro. I got a date. And they was like, I'm all, and they, so they start laughing and they like, oh, we like this dude, right? This was early stages, but I'm already going through that phase of, bro, I started going to, Prop 57 pass. Prop 57 pass. So now, like I said, I went to jail for, I ended up pleading to shooting in an occupied dwelling. So I ended up pleading to what's that called? A non-violent, no, a non-violent, like a serious strike.
We
And,
had your co-defendant on the
oh,
trip too. We
Sam, bro,
had
come
Samuel.
on, bro.
We had Samuel
Come
on
on,
post
bro.
P
Matter
too.
of fact, bro, I've been wanting to do a podcast with bro, with all my Codys, bro.
Steven,
Bro,
we interviewed
oh,
Samuel, who
there
was
y'all
his
I
interviewed
love
Sam
Samuel.
co-defendant. Yes.
Samuel's awesome. Great
Samuel
guy.
was also a groomsman at
Yep.
my wedding.
On
I
everything.
still
Sam,
follow him on
bro.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Sam, hey, Sam kept the, bro, Sam?
Yeah.
Okay, we all took a deal. Okay, that story. Everybody can go check it out on Post P. Sam, we took a deal. Sam, bro.
Took it to the
Sam
box.
took it to the box and still came home in 7 years. That's faith. That's, they thought Sam
With a
went
life
crazy.
sentence. With a life
Life
sentence.
sentence. They thought Sam was crazy. People thought Sam was J. Cat, people thought Sam was crazy. Sam had a goal and Sam was stick to his
He's like, I'm
goal.
not taking no 15 years and I ain't even shoot nobody. Ain't nobody got shot. What the what? And the people that shot got 10 years and you think I'm
Hey,
gonna take
hey, right.
15?
So,
What?
my brother, he's in prison, right?
Man.
A lot of people I know that was with Sam. They was like, Sam never said he had, like, Sam used to be like, I'm going home. I'm going home. And they used to be like,
I was with him. He was my celly.
they said
Yeah.
Sam used to be like, I'm going home. I'm going home.
Yep.
And that's what everybody say, bro, Sam going crazy. No, Sam knew. Sam knew he was,
Yeah.
Sam ended up doing the same time we did. Same, about like probably a little over a year. But so,
It's a blessing. True story.
blessing.
Blessing.
So Prop 57 passed. So now I'm eligible to go home at my base term. They gave me 15 years, 5 years, doubled up. The system. They gave me 5 years because I already had a strike. They doubled me up. They made me double up to do 5 more extra years for my previous crime, and then they gave me the nickel prior. So they quadrupled me, brother. I was doing my crime, the time 5 years. They doubled me up, and they gave me the 5 year nickel prior, 15 years. And then they say, you know what? We'll drop the gang enhancement. We'll drop the conspiracy to commit murder, the premeditate, all the what gave Sam a life sentence. They will drop all that, and so like me and my other colleague, we done taken 15, all under agreement. We was all in the. Sam was like, "I'm not taking it, bro. I'm not. Y'all take it. I'm going to the box." Well, all right, brother. We gonna see you in jail. We gonna see you in prison. We got to get home. Like, but I just remember Prop 57 passed, and I'm like, oh, I gotta start. I gotta start getting my certificates. The first thing I did was sign up for Christian service. I signed up for like a pen pal, to get certificates. So I end up, I'm in high desert, and I just start like reading. I start getting into my spirituality. I'm like, okay, something gotta be more like I'm like something has to be. I was always missing this piece. I was always missing something. In the streets, I always describe like your heart is a piece, and you're always like searching for something, like yearning for something, and when you coming up, and you don't even got to be in the streets. You could just be coming up in life.
Right.
You're always searching for purpose, life, yearning. You're searching. You feel me? So it's not even just coming in the streets. I just came up in the streets. I came up in the streets. That's my experience. But this is just in life in general. You're going to always be searching for something. If it's not, you're going to be. So for me, I realized being in prison in high desert, I started to realize, wow, the streets was something it was something I was trying to complete myself with. And it was like a drug. I was never addicted to drugs. I was as sober as I am now as I was then. I was just hyper. So I started to realize my drug was the streets. My drug was just the high of the streets. So when I got the and I started to realize that was my addiction. I started to realize what was I trying to, I was trying to search for myself. I was trying to search for that missing. So when I was in high desert, I started to realize, I'm like, I need to get into my spirituality and my faith. I grew up Christian, so I'm like, and when I started to get into my faith, something started to awaken. Like, this was before I started to get into education. I started to like just Bible. It was Bible and just I was reading a Bible and I was reading Malcolm X for my second time. I was reading a Bible and I was started to like ask more questions about my
Who you were.
who I was, and then not
Where
only
you
that, I
came
started
from.
asking more questions about my faith. Once that started to happen, I started to like, now I'm going through. This is in high desert. I'm not. And I'm like you said. I'm with the homies. I'm rocking with the homies. I'm a stump down blood, whatever you want to call it, right? Stump down, ready to what? Right? I'm ready to go down for the cause, whatever,
Ready to
right?
crash out. Right.
But in back of my mind, I'm like, no, I'm not ready to crash out. And right, but you can't say this out loud. You can't say
You better not say this out
you better
loud.
not say out loud. Well, you
Especially
better not
not
say
up there.
right. So,
Especially not
but
up there.
but in my head, I'm like, and I'm getting to back to myself. I'm like, okay. But I started to realize as I'm going down my journey of like searching for myself, and I started to realize, wow, like I never had money. I never was um I never was a hustler. I never was a baller. I always gave my heart to whatever I was doing. When I was in football, when I was a youth, when I was in football, I was a football player. When I was young, when I got in the street, I was in the streets. my heart was in it. I started to realize, I'm like, okay, my heart's not in the streets, and I'm really feeling this like searching for who I am. So I started to like, I started to get to doing my faith, and then I got into college, and then I started to like experience people on the yard started to like, you know that saying like, you know you doing like, you know you doing, if you doing good and you know you doing good and somebody still trying to like politic on you, you know you doing right, right? So like I started like, I'm in high desert, so I started to like, I'm not doing the average thing. I'm not on the yard politicking, talking about my little plastic knife and what's going to what I'm going to do when it happens. You know the talk that's on the yard, that nonsense.
Every day.
So I'm avoiding that. I'm in church service. I'm going to. I'm in college, and I started to evolve, and then I started to go to the Islamic service. You know what I mean? I started to like play. I used to play basketball all the time. I started to seek out the like the remember the Rastafarian I was saying. I started to seek out other brothers. So and as I'm doing this, I'm getting deeper and deeper into like I start to learn about history. I get deeper into like Islam. I meet the brothers, and that was what caused me to start like Islam. The deeper I got to Islam, I started to really start to see. I really started to see the streets for what it really, really was. I started to see like, I started to see like the evil behind it. I started to really see like I started to really see. I started to see when I got to Islam. I started to see
Your eyes were awake.
my eyes was where I started to see the purpose. You know what I mean? I started to see like, like, what would I say? I started really questioning my purpose. I started really to say like, damn, if I died today, like, would I actually be able to like to say like I could go to heaven? Like as men of faith, we believe in the afterlife. We believe in accountability. That what you do on this earth, on this life, in the next life, you have to be held accountable. So when that happened, so when I started to think like that, I started to say, I started to get into like, I remember what accelerated it was one day I came to yard, and the same brother that a year ago I got close with named D-Man, I came to yard and he told me, he said, bro, I was still rocking with the homies. He said, bro, I'm gonna tell you this, but you don't gotta worry about everything's good. And like, I'm like, bro, what's up? Like, you could tell me. They had a meeting in like a lower yard, like I mean, in another building, and the meeting was that they was going to DP me on the yard because I'm not programming, right? It was just all the quote unquote YGs, all the young dudes. I'm in building 8. They're in like building 6 with the bro killer Kev and I'm pumped up. I'm like, what you mean? He like, bro. So on those levels, it's structured. Things are structured.
Right.
So they all talk about it, and then they go and call
Send
the
kites to every single building.
yeah.
Everybody
So,
have a meeting.
but before they do that, they go and end up talking to like the G's. The G's on the yard. You know what I mean?
Right.
That you just don't do you just don't do anything. So when they tell them, they like, hey, we thinking about DPing. At the time I'm bullying. They're like, we thinking about DPing bullying. They like, you thinking about what? They're like, that's not going down. They like shut it down. I'm like, they tell him like, basically tell him like, y'all don't understand. And this is just, they was calling me bullying. They're like, y'all don't understand what bullying is on. Y'all don't understand the path that he's on. this was in high desert. These was like the dudes at the time that was like the brothers that was running the yard. It's blacks run a little differently, but these is you have on those levels you have the people,
Structure.
the structure, the whatever.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I realized I'm doing exactly the right thing. Because I'm not doing nothing wrong, bro. I'm not doing nothing
You're
wrong.
not doing drugs. You're not
Nah.
drinking. You're not yelling over the tier. You're
Not
not
even
gambling. You
tear.
don't owe no other
I'm
races. You're
laced.
not disrespecting nobody. You
We
going to
laced
school. You going to church, and you reading.
and reading.
Get
Yep.
them. Get
Oh
them.
yep.
Get them now.
Yep.
Stab them fast.
Like,
Like what?
and then for me, I started to realize it was the devil though. I started to realize it was a shaitan though. I'm like, okay, this is in coming from the streets, coming from where I come from. I'm able to say like, all right, bro. I feel like I reached the heights of where I'm from. I feel like I reached the heights of being in the street. So I'm like, I'm already seeing through the fugazi. You can't. I'll always say, if you come from the streets, it's like Terminator. Terminator could see the Terminator, and they got like enemy target. When you come from the streets, that's what street smarts get you. You could see fugazi from like,
A mile away.
man, you know what I mean. I could smell fugazi on you. I could,
Let me ask you something, because you talked about your purpose. So I'm gonna fast forward, right? Because one, you said 40 years in the desert, and I think that's what's gonna sit with most people with this episode. But I want them to sit with that, and then I want to get them to who you are today, what you're doing today, the lives you changed today, who Shaheed is today.
so
And let's start with pillars of the community.
right. Okay, so being able to go through that whole journey, that prison journey, that whole streets journey. God's the best of planners. Y'all know Joseph in the Bible. Joseph,
In the multicolored robe.
Al- alayhi salam, right? Peace be upon him. His journey with prison, brothers hated him in prison. Being able to come home, like in prison, brothers used to tell us, study that, study Joseph. Like, hey, bro, what is in the Quran? We call him Yusuf, alayhi salam. What was Yusuf doing? Bro, Yusuf was doing the same thing you doing. Study Yusuf. So Yusuf, Yusuf, Yusuf. Study Yusuf, study Yusuf, study Yusuf. You, we know the story of Yusuf. Yusuf, brothers, Yusuf end up in, the women lied on him. He ended up going in incarceration for a,
A long time.
a long time. Let's say a long time. I don't know the specific year, but a long time. In the Bible, it specifically said God was with him through his whole experience. The Quran says the same exact same thing and just in different terms. Same thing, same thing. And then he came home, and Joseph was able to save the country, that whole side of the world. That was the whole side of the world he saved at that time. He ended up being of service to his people. Yusuf ended up alayhi salam forgiving his brothers. And this was a man, a prophet, peace be upon him, who wasn't like ourself, who, you know what I mean? This wasn't, coming home, like ingrained that so hard in my brain, coming home now and being blessed to be at God being able to bless me at a community organization like Pillars of the Community is like my like Joseph moment, being able to be like, because that was a man that I was able to like mimic, and to be able to come home and now be able to be advocating for not only those that are most impacted by the system, the police, incarceration, but like being able to be home and be able to show like those who's going through it that, bro, there's really like light at the end of the tunnel. And then for those that are young, that like I work with them, they was me and you You feel me? 14, 15, 16, 17. For it's we got two. We just enrolled three young youth who 2 weeks who a few months ago would have never ever thought about college. They were me and you. They were for sure destined for prison. They were in prison. If we would have never got a hold on them about 8 months ago, they will be in prison for a long time.
That's amazing.
They will be in prison for a long time. Now they graduated high school. Like three of them just graduated high school last year. Now they're enrolled in college, and they, like we said, like we don't glorify it. It was a dude named I don't know if you know. You probably been incarcerated him. His name was Faderant. His name is a dude named Faderant. You know Faderant?
Yeah.
Faderant. I'm in high desert, and I'm eavesdropping on this conversation. He's talking to a Kiwi, and Faderant goes, he's telling the Kiwi. A lot of people who ain't been to prison or ain't experienced be like, bro, that sounds crazy. But the Faderant telling the Kiwi dude like, hey, Faderant. He like, hey, dudes in prison. He like, hey, you know why God made you a crip? They talking though, but this is what I heard. He like, you know why God made you a crip? He said because he said only you could go back to your community and save those youth. Bro, this is how he's talking on the yard. He said, he goes, bro, he said, you speak the crippled language. He said, bro, a brother who ain't never ever came up in the streets, his brother probably was born and raised in the suburbs. We've experienced them. I've been to juvenile hall. I've been to high schools. I've seen these people come into and talk to me, and it's like, bro, you don't know what? And there's no correlation outside of stuff you read in the book or whatever X, Y, A, but whatever the experience is. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I just remember what I was about to say. Oh my God, I just remember my train of thought.
Now, but you saying like your test is someone else's testimony,
A hundred
right? The
percent.
things that you went through is so that you can now help
Yep.
the
Be
youth,
able to help
right?
the youth. Yep. And
And that's
oh,
what you're doing.
yep, it was Faderant. He told him that, and in my brain, I'm like, he said the dude that went to Wall Street can't come back to the community and save the community. He
Fact.
told. I heard this in High Desert. I'm like, I said, I wrote that down. I said, damn, and it stuck with me. I said to say that now. To answer your question, what you said about like 30 minutes ago, I realized that's where our big homies or the dudes we looked up to failed. Like that was the missing piece. They had all the power because they had our ear. We knew who that guy. If you had, we knew who you was. You had our ear. We didn't care about, I don't know, the athlete or the rapper. We didn't care about who he was. We cared about the homie who was a joint, the homie who was known, the homie who we could mimic, the homie who had a name. So like, I kind of like I went through that. So being able to use those experiences, learn from that, have older homies go through that, have older people elders. I seen where people miss. So being able to be blessed in that position, in the community, and because for a while, so when I first came into Pillars was very when I first they blessed me to come into the organizing work. Pillars blessed me to be able to come into the space and be able to like 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 you need every seed needs a fertile fertilizer to be able to grow. So Pillars been was able to be able to come home, and literally I met Pillars by accident. It was a third party. Someone asked me to go to break fast. Someone got invited, and that person invited me. So I end up like meeting Pillars on a humbug essentially, and it was just by God's will to be able to just come into this organizing work and be able to be like a voice and be able to do social justice, to be able to bring civic engagement in the community, be able to be literally having these are dudes, young youth, young black males now, they have a reference point to be like, oh, that's what a big homie is. Like, even I'm Shaheed. I'm Shaheed to a lot of people, but to them, I'm Shaheed, but I'm also considered like the a big homie to them because that's how they look through the eyes. No matter what, everything I've been through was able to, because I can't. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I don't know how this sounds, but I'm not going to go to. I don't think that's where I'm most effective is going to someone who never like someone who haven't had my experiences. A young kid who don't know what it feels like to not have no mom, no dad. Who was born and raised, privileged, who was school, you know what I mean, who's going straight to elementary, middle
Right.
school, high school, college, and not say they don't have struggles, but that's not my purpose. Like my purpose is
Your
those
community.
that my community, those youth that come from, you know, those experiences that, that make or break you, So
Man, and you're
You
doing
know, this reminds
amazing
me.
work.
I was going to say, and one of my thoughts, you keep mentioning Joseph, and one of my favorite quotes in the book of Joseph, sorry, not in the book, stupid, but in the story of Joseph is it says, what God intended for evil, sorry, what Satan intended for evil, God can use for good. That's what he tells his brothers, and
yep,
if you're out
Mm.
there listening to this right now, that's exactly, if you're in prison, if you're formerly incarcerated, you're on that path. That's what Satan wants. He wants you locked up. He wants you ineffective. He wants you there. He wants you rendered useless. He wants you running in gangs. Because then the calling that God had on your life, um, you would have never been able to accomplish. And so Satan had a goal. God's like, no, I'm going to redeem that. And I got a bigger goal for him. So
hundred
hearing your
percent.
story, it's exactly what I see. Satan's like, let's lock him up. Let's throw away the key. He can't go back. And someone poured into you. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to give back, and my
Hundred
story is
percent.
going to change lives. And that's what you're doing right now. So I love to hear it.
No, 100%. It's most definitely a blessing. It's
Yeah.
most definitely a blessing.
It's a blessing. And again, shout out to Pillars of the Community. Layla, you've been doing some amazing work. You guys are doing some amazing work. Shaheed, you're doing some amazing work. And, as we wrap this up, I just want you to have an opportunity to let people, how can they reach out to you to hear the rest of your story, to hear everything that you're doing? Like, how can they reach out to you?
So interesting thing. You could reach out to me at on Instagram at the THA community underscore member. You could reach out to me there, and also I'm actually about to start getting into. Also, you can follow me on YouTube, priceless underscore journey 6. I had to put the 6 because I wanted to process journey, and that was the only way. It was the only number I felt was right. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll put any number. I'll put 6 on there. Right. So
It's all good.
I will be I'm gonna like I said, I was telling you that I had like everything. I'll say this: everything I'm doing now in my life, that's and that God has coming for me, inshallah, in my life, God willing. I pray for it. Nothing I've not have, I have I prayed for it, and everything that I'm doing now in my life, I wrote it in my journal. So I am going to I'm going to have my YouTube journal. I mean my YouTube channel Substack, where I'll be telling my like journey and my story. I have like so much like material from being in prison and writing like personal writings, insights of like everything I'm telling. I like wrote this stuff down and I wrote this stuff down in prison. You know what I mean? Like about like just a lot of my insights and stuff like that. So, you know, that's pretty much that's how people could find me and, hopefully follow me soon.
Yeah, definitely. I'm following you. I'm gonna follow you on your TikTok, and let's hear your story. We definitely appreciate you showing up. We've been working on this for a year, and you
No, for
did
sure.
not disappoint, man. We definitely
No,
appreciate
for
you, man.
sure. And I want to
So
thank y'all for inviting me too, bro, for sure. For sure. Highly, 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 highly appreciate it to both of y'all.
yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Hey, man. So once again, man, on another great episode, I'm Will,
And I'm Steven.
and this is the Post P Chronicles.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.